and the Safe Streets Act. So let's get to our expert on this. Hans von Spakovsky joins us once again, the Advancing American Freedom Senior Legal Fellow, also former FEC Commissioner and former DOJ lawyer. Hans, welcome back. It's good to have you. Happy Thursday.
Well, thanks for having me back.
Of course. You know, we're seeing the lead investigator on fraud with J.D. Vance. Harmeet Dillon is constantly looking into these areas where there is just a two-tier justice system. There are things that are allowed to happen for some people and not for others. And Hans, what we're seeing quite a bit is the simple fact that somebody might not have a legal immigration status, fraud, this type of situation where you have a prosecutor. It seems as though that trumps everything else on the details of the issue.
Well, that's true. And Steve Descano, who is the Fairfax County DA that's being investigated, I unfortunately live in that county. And I can tell you, he is one of the worst prosecutors in the entire country. He is a Soros-supported prosecutor. That's how he got elected. And not only does he not like prosecuting, frankly, anybody, any criminal, he does give special consideration to illegal aliens. He is constantly reducing serious felony charges in order to make sure that they then won't be picked up by ICE, won't be qualified under the federal statute that says that aliens convicted of serious crimes can immediately be picked up and deported. He does that constantly and, frankly, endangers the community. There's all kinds of individuals that he has let out of jail deliberately and intentionally who've then gone on to commit other crimes.
Yeah, you know, Hans, I'm thinking about it. Let's just take Descano's name out of it. Let's just talk high level. With this type of prosecutor, what is this type of prosecutor charged with? What is the oath that they take? What is their responsibility to the community?
They are supposed to enforce the law and prosecute on an equal basis. In other words, neither your race nor your immigration status should have any consideration whatsoever when a prosecutor is making a decision, not only whether to prosecute you, but in what kind of sentence to recommend to the judge. And look, Descano is a problem, but the other issue, of course, is you have judges in Fairfax County who are allowing him to get away with it. And there's more that they could be doing to try to stop him, and they're not doing it.
Yeah, the priority here does not seem to be the safety and preservation of a community that sends these people into office to serve that safety and community. It seems as though there's an entirely different motivation behind their actions.
Yeah, look, a normal DA's office is supposed to have their greatest concern for the victims of crimes. Descano and his ilk and the other Soros-supported prosecutors in other parts of the country, their biggest concern are the criminals that they're supposed to be prosecuting. And in every city where someone like Descano has gotten elected, the number of criminal prosecutions has gone down dramatically. The arrests haven't gone down dramatically, but it's the prosecutors either dropping the cases and not prosecuting or lowering the charges to the point where these individuals, like I said, are immediately let out of jail. These are the same folks, by the way, who have pushed for policies like no cash bail, which also puts criminals out on the street to commit more crimes.
You know, Hans, I'm thinking to myself about St. Louis, where we are right now. And previously we had one of these Soros handpicked DAs, not anymore for a whole host of reasons. But, we've spoken with police officers on the air and also privately. You know, you said the number of arrests don't go down, but the number of people willing to arrest people in these communities goes down because they go elsewhere. Right. Because they're putting, you have men and women who are putting their life on the line to arrest criminals. And then they don't get prosecuted at some point. I mean, good grief. If I'm married to that person, I'm saying, get the heck out of there. Your life isn't worth something that people aren't worth seeing all the way through.
No, that's exactly right. Look, in Washington, D.C., rather than having a local DA, the U.S. attorney is basically the local DA because of D.C. status. The prior U.S. attorney under Joe Biden refused to prosecute over 60%
That's crazy.
of the arrests of local police. And that is one of the biggest reasons why the D.C. Metro Force, they are short like 1,000 police officers because those officers have left and gone elsewhere.
Hans von Spakovsky speaking with us, the Advancing American Freedom Senior Legal Fellow, former FEC Commissioner and former DOJ lawyer. Let's talk just a little bit, your thoughts and opinions on the Department of Justice. Todd Blanche as the acting Attorney General. First brief question, is there a limitation on how long he could be the acting Attorney General? And secondly, we've had a rush here of indictments on a bunch of different levels. Do you feel as though the Department of Justice has put the pedal to the metal here in a good way, gives you encouragement going forward?
I would say in a good way on most of their cases. I do have questions about the James Comey indictment. I mean, look, I don't like James Comey. I think he abused his power as the head of the FBI for partisan reasons. But unless they have other evidence other than the fact that he sent a picture of seashells on the seashore, if that's the only thing they have, then they're clearly, I think, intruding into his First Amendment rights. Now, Blanche has said they have other evidence, other witnesses, but he hasn't said what it is. So I will wait and see. But that's one of the only.
Does the Comey thing look a little like vengeful lawfare, in your opinion?
I mean, I don't think that DOJ is engaging in vengeful lawfare. I think they're actually going after people who have broken the law and that the prior administration refused to go after.
Including Comey in this instance?
Well, yeah. I mean, Comey, I think the first indictment, the one that got dismissed, remember, he was indicted for perjury. That case got dismissed, not because of the merit of it, but because a court said that the lawyer who signed it had not been properly appointed by the president. I think that was actually a legitimate indictment. I don't know about this latest one.
Okay. Well, now let's talk a little bit before we let you go about the Supreme Court as it is right now, and also the potential Supreme Court as it could be in the future. So, of course, you would need a Democrat to be in the presidency in order to really make some of these things change. But, if the Democrats were to get a strong enough hold of Congress and the two houses, or the Senate specifically, the two houses there, I hear James Carville say everything's on the table. I hear other Democrat pundits so disgusted with the way these 6-3 majorities are coming out of the Supreme Court on various rulings that they say everything is there. Lots of Democrats have said pack the court. Is that a realistic possibility going forward, and could it happen sooner than we might think?
Boy, I sure hope not. Remember, they wouldn't need a constitutional amendment to do that. The size of the court is set by federal law. So if they got control of Congress, including, I think, a filibuster-proof Senate and a Democratic president, they could do it. I hope not.
That's a tall order.
Yeah. And look, if you want an example of how bad the court would be if they did that, all you have to do is read an order that came out just this past Monday in the Louisiana versus Calais case, and read this dissent written by the newest member, Justice Jackson. It is one of the most emotionally unhinged court orders I've ever seen. She is a prime and frankly terrible example of the kind of judges they would put on the Supreme Court.
Do you feel as though that there's something that the Republicans could and should be doing right now to prevent that from being a possibility? Constitutional amendment is a huge, huge deal. Right. It kind of blows my mind to even think that would ever be possible in the division that we live in right now. Is there anything that the Republicans can do to fortify the Supreme Court as the 9-seat Supreme Court that it is at this point?
No, I think the only way they could do that is to pass a constitutional amendment that sets the size of the court at 9. I could tell you, though, that this is another reason why they should not get rid of the filibuster rule in the U.S. Senate, as some have been proposing.
Save America Act? You think that that's something that should get done with the election integrity, even to the extent with which they'd have to alter the filibuster in order to get it done?
Yeah, look, I've been 100% behind the SAVE Act, but I don't think it's worth getting rid of the filibuster to do that. What I'd love to see is to have the SAVE Act included in the reconciliation package. But as you know, that was prevented by 4 Republicans in a vote a week or so ago who voted against doing that.
Last question on the filibuster. Hans von Spakovsky speaking with us. How do you feel about the standing filibuster, the old-fashioned way of doing it before they could just decide, well, we can't break the filibuster, we'll just go home? Do you feel as though there is value in reinstating the filibuster as an active participation element to be reinstituted there in the Senate?
The answer is yes. You know, senators work an average of 2 days a week. And I think that if they are going to oppose a bill, they shouldn't just be able to say we're going to oppose it. They should be forced to stay on the floor of the Senate 24 hours a day talking to oppose it. Make them work to do it.
All right. Well, Hans von Spakovsky, we're grateful for your time. Thank you.